So we have dominant and recessive traits in humans. These are just a couple, but there's thousands of them. Having freckles is dominant, so if we were to go ahead and give this a letter, this person could be big F, or big F, little f. And not the recessive would be little f, little f. The widow's peak, and I could give them any letter, D for dots and no dots, whatever you want to call them, you're fine. With the widow's peak, some of these just make sense to call it these letters, but you would be able to tell me whatever you want. Widow's peak, you could be a heterozygous or homozygous. So heterozygous would be like the big W, little w. Homozygous dominant would be the big W, big W. The only way you can't have a widow's peak is if you were a little w, little w. The free earlobe is the dominant one, so let's call that big E, or you can call it whatever you want. Lobe, big E, little e, and the only way you could have the attached one is little e, little e. So I could see a question on the exam where I say a homozygous dominant person for widow's peak crosses with a homozygous recessive person, and we want to know what is the phenotype and genotype, and you could pause it and kind of do the Punnett square yourself. And if you do, go ahead and pause it now. Okay, well, if you did it, you found out that when you cross the homozygous dominant to homozygous recessive, 100% of the children will have the widow's peaks, and 100% of the children would have the phenotype or genotype of big W, little w. And the genotype would be, well, big W, little w is the genotype, phenotype would be the widow's peak. Let's do one more. For freckles, the heterozygous for freckles crosses to a homozygous recessive for freckles. What are the odds? Go ahead and pause it. Let's do that one together. Okay, if you did it, what you did is you did big F, little f, cross to little f, and we ended up with something like this, where we had a big F, little f, little f, oops, little f, little f, and then we ended up with, So in that example, we would have a, oops, let's go ahead and draw the Punnett square first. And we are going to cross a, oops, little f, I guess it doesn't matter if we put them on the top and the bottom, cross to a big F, little f, and I'm just going to put a little line under these so you know that it's little f. So we go ahead and get a, we get a 50-50 ratio, where we end up with 50% of their children being freckled and 50% of the children having no freckles. And we could do that with phenotype or genotype. Let's do a human example. This is Huntington's disease. You can see what the brain looks like normally, and you can see what the brain looks like with Huntington's disease. It's a genetic disorder where you are going to be an autosomal dominant. So this person could be big H or big H little h. It's usually something that pops up around your 40s or 50s and causes problems. And you can see what a normal brain looks like and what an affected brain looks like. We'll talk more about this in 201. But one of the things you'll have to know is a pedigree. First thing you'll need to know is a circle means female and a square means male. And this is basically how the family tree is broken down. This is autosomal dominant, which means that autosomal means it's all the other chromosomes besides the X and the Y. And you know it's autosomal because the males and the females are both affected. If it was sex-linked, we'd see one or the other affected. We can go ahead and put these trees together based off of a story and try to figure out why they've been affected or what's going on. Here, we go ahead and have our first generation, so these are going to be the grandparents. Second generation is going to be our parents, and then our third generation is going to be their offspring, or the grandparents' grandkids. And again, colored in is going to be affected, plain is not affected. So if we look at this one, you'll see that there's a generation up here that had an issue, passed it down, and it showed up a couple of generations later. This is going to be called still autosomal because we could see that it's in males and females, but it's recessive. And you could see that it skipped a generation or so. And that's why we see it pop up every once in a while. When it's dominant, you're going to see it in every generation, but recessive, you'll see it every other one. With sex-linked, that's going to come off of the X and Y chromosome. And the X and Y chromosome is carried by the male and the female. So the male is going to, when it goes through and makes sperm, is going to make the autosomal, so there's still going to be the 22, and then either going to give that sperm an X or a Y. Where a female really has no choice. She's going to take her normal genetic material and divide it in half. So that's going to be her autosomal. Her sex-linked is always going to be X. So what will happen is, if these two come together, the X and the Y, it'll become a male. If this X and this X come together, it'll become a female. So these are going to be our sex traits or sex-linked. They could be different things like blood disorders, and we'll talk about one or two different traits in a minute. Eye color is definitely one of them too. That is a sex-linked trait. Let's talk about this family. So this is a Russian family, royalty family in Europe. And basically what happened is, when you're royalty, you can only marry royalty. So what happened is, these guys started to inbreed with cousins and things like that. And women could carry the genetic disorder because it's on the X chromosome, but males inherit the problem. And what problem they inherit is this thing called hemophilia. So if we look in this family, and hemophilia is the inability to clot your blood, so you could bleed out. So here's their family tree, and you can see that Queen Victoria was a carrier, that's why she's colored in, and then the yellow would be the affected. Prince Albert was normal. They had 1, 2, 3, 4 children. One of them was a hemophiliac, and that means that you can see he died early. They had some children, so you could see that they had 2 kids. One was a carrier, and one was normal, so they had 1 kid, and they married somebody else, and they produced a hemophiliac kid, which died at 21. They also produced another daughter, who had 1, 2, 3 kids. 2 of them didn't have children because they had hemophilia and died sort of early, 23 and 33. The female was a carrier. Her 2 children died they both had hemophilia, 20 and 30. So number one, you could see a couple of patterns going on here. Pattern number one is everybody that had hemophilia is yellow, also square, which means that they were male. Anybody that is the carrier is the female, so we know that they're carrying one bad X chromosome and one good X chromosome, and they are passing that bad X chromosome to this child. And this one got lucky. He got the good X chromosome, married somebody that sadly had a bad X chromosome, and gave it to their children. And you can see that a lot of these kids do die early, 11, 3, 4, 21. You can see they're kind of all over the place.